Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a website called One More Castle, and for a period of time from 2012 to 2014, every August 8th, they would host a little online event called Review a Bad Game Day, where people around the interwebs can review what they believed were bad games. I myself participated in the first event in 2012 with a review of Firefly for the Atari, and that was that because at the time I thought it was a one-time thing and never knew this was a recurring thing until a couple years later. Now, I was hoping to contribute to the potential 2015 edition, but unfortunately, One More Castle closed its gates and the event never happened. And then I went ahead and stole the gimmick for myself in an attempt to make up for lost time, and so every August 8th, I review a bad game. Today's upload date just so happens to be August 8th, 2017. It's that time once more. And while I have a number of choices on hand that could be considered worthwhile fodder for this special occasion, and believe me, we'll get to those somewhere down the line, it would be a random trip to the Steam service in search of good deals and or cheap games that interest me, which unveiled this wonderful gem, German Fortress 3D, and it only cost me a couple bucks. And let me tell you folks something, this was the best couple bucks I've ever spent because what we have here is a real piece of shit, regurgitated into a 10th-rate Wolfenstein 3D knockoff so shameless in its horridness and uninspiration that all of a sudden, Super 3D Noah's Ark is no longer the worst thing associated with Wolf 3D that I've exposed myself to. Because while that game has its issues and it's a generally bad idea, it does work. It is playable. On PC at least. On Super Nintendo not so much. German Fortress 3D on the other hand? Where would you like me to start, Pally? Well, how about the menu? That's a quality menu now, isn't it? This is hilariously god-awful. Oh dear, there's a part of me that's asking if this was made deliberately bad to get people to poke fun at it or something and have a good laugh, and if that's the case, then good job, pal. And then there's a bigger part of me that thinks that maybe Steam should do a better job in determining what games actually gets onto their surface, because when someone can stumble onto shit like this, well, I have to wonder. I really do. So here's the deal. German Fortress 3D, as if you probably couldn't tell, is a first-person shooter in the vein of Wolfenstein 3D. Except not as good. You move around these maze-like corridors looking for a key to unlock the door and eventually find the exit. Along the way, you kill guards to collect ammo, find weapons and health pickups, and pray you don't get shot down by the bad guys. Yet the thing about German Fortress 3D is that the minute those enemies show up on screen, your health starts to drain at an alarming rate, meaning you'll have to kill your foes quickly before they do you in. The more enemies within close proximity, the faster the health drain. So it's less skillful dodging of enemy attacks and more quick reflexes to stop a rapid countdown, which would be fine if it were done right. This is not done right. Not in the slightest. When you start a new game, your only weapon is a knife. You could pick up a shotgun, but there's no ammo in it, so you have to switch back to your knife, stab the bad guy you see to death, switch back to your shotgun and pick up the ammo because the ammo only refills your current weapon. So if you try to pick up an ammo pack with your knife equipped, you're not picking up that ammo pack until you switch to the shotgun or whatever weapon is needing ammo. It's a very cumbersome, very bad setup. Even the most primitive of first-person shooters allowed you to pick up ammo for another weapon that isn't your currently equipped one. The fact that this game doesn't let you do that one basic functionality is a troubling sign. But on top of that, your first weapon in the game is a knife, then you pick up the shotgun, and it's not that good of a weapon because it shoots these orange gobs at enemies and they're slow moving, and so you really have to aim your shots properly and hope your intended targets don't stray from their location. Fortunately, somewhere along the way, you'll pick up a chain gun that acts like what a normal chain gun would act like in a proper FPS. If you run out of health, the game ends and you go back to the title menu. But you can't save your game at any point in any of the 4 slots provided, so that's something, I guess. Unfortunately, it doesn't help that the gameplay is just piss poor and borderline mind-numbing. I had enough after playing 4 or 5 levels because it was just the same old thing over and over again and it became a chore to play. German Fortress 3D isn't a difficult game by nature, it's artificially difficult due to broken mechanics and lack of polish on the gameplay. And indeed, if the mechanics were refined a bit and the gameplay was polished to a point where it was a lot more playable, then we'd be playing an entirely different game altogether, and it'd be called Wolfenstein 3D. German Fortress 3D is the house of stolen assets and stock templates. If the enemies looked like slight redresses of the Nazis you fought in Wolf 3D, it's because these sprites were actually taken from the Wolfenstein 3D Dome site, which houses a bunch of mod material on there for Wolf 3D. I wouldn't be surprised if the walls were taken from that site as well, though I could be wrong in that regard, I'm not that quite sure. The only graphical assets that don't appear to be borrowed from that said site or whatever the case may be are the guns and the pickups. I'm guessing these are stock resources from whatever game maker was used to create these games. But that's not high praise. In fairness, however, the original creators of these sprites and walls were credited in the credit screen. How much involvement these individuals have beyond mere superficial representation is questionable at best. All the corridors in the game are dark with minimal lighting, making it difficult to see enemies in the distance as they eat away at your health at warp factor 9. I think this was done deliberately to hide the fact that enemies pop out of nowhere once you reach a certain distance, and that's always fun. When you kill an enemy, their corpse vanishes into thin air almost instantaneously, which makes backtracking a bit of a chore since without them corpses, there's a greater chance of getting lost in these labyrinths as there's no auto map feature in the game. Some enemies, when killed, do remain on the map, and you could see their corpses, so that's an odd bit of inconsistency in that regard. As far as menus and intermissions, well, I've said my bit early on that there's not much else to add on this subject. German Fortress 3D only has a couple MIDI tracks that play, one for intermissions and one for gameplay. Every level has the same tune playing in the background, and it's one of the more generic sounding MIDIs I've heard. I'm sure this was taken from someplace else. Sound effects are also kind of bad, just bad. That's all I got. I think that covers all the bases. Overall, German Fortress 3... wait a minute. I forgot to talk about the controls. Yeah, actually I didn't forget. I just saved it for the last bit I wanted to talk about because the controls in German Fortress 3D can be best described diplomatically as FUBARD to the 10th power. You use WASD keys to move your character. You use the arrow keys to turn. You use the spacebar to open doors. You press tab to cycle through weapons. There's no direct access, like, there's no pressing 2 for the pistol or whatever the case may be. You left click on the mouse to fire your current weapon. This normally wouldn't be a problem. As a matter of fact, it's not a big deal because the keyboard mouse setup is often the best option for playing a first-person shooter on a computer. But not when mouse sensitivity is set to warp 10 as it is in this game. Using the mouse to move is not a good idea because even the slightest push on the mouse is enough to careen your character 720 degrees in a clockwise direction. No matter what direction you push that mouse, you're only turning one direction, which makes using the mouse a bad idea, except you have to use the mouse to fire your guns, because there's no such key on the keyboard that does the same thing, and this shit control scheme is what kills German Fortress 3D. Not that there was much to kill to begin with, but there you go. Now I suppose if keyboard and mouse doesn't work, then use the gamepad. Except German Fortress 3D has no native gamepad support, which means you'll have to use the Steam controller customizing doohickey thing in Steam to set your gamepad of choice up so that you have some minute level of control over the action. And the end result is only slightly better. But slightly better isn't an overall improvement over your experience, it's just a really cheap bandage that peels off on its own after 5 minutes of wear and tear. Suffice it to say, if you wanted the best possible control setup for a game like this, that's simply not an option with German Fortress 3D. You want to know what the real kicker is? German Fortress 3D did get a software update somewhere along the way. You want to know what that update entailed? Increased mouse sensitivity. Yes, more mouse sensitivity. Actually, no, it's more mouse sensitivity. LOLs. Because that's precisely what this game needs, right? There's no fixing the enemy AI, no fixing the pop-up enemies, no polish on the gameplay, no fixing the game controls so that they work properly. No, we just get more mouse sensitivity. LOLs. Oh, for fuck's sake, seriously? Overall, I just spent 10 minutes talking about a game that you otherwise never would have heard of until I brought it up. As of this recording, there's only 2 other videos that touched this game, and one of them was the woeful trailer from the people who made this game. And that's already more than what German Fortress 3D deserves, as far as the spotlight is concerned. I consider this video over. Yeah, so that was kind of fun, I guess. Next review thing will be on something slightly nicer, and the next couple games on the list are going to be average at worst, so for the moment, we're safe from the truly wretched material. I don't think we'll be getting around that until a couple months from now, so that's for another day, however. Right now, it's 3 in the morning, I'm dead tired, and the caffeine is wearing off, so good night.